Welcome, explorers. I'm Dan Holt, and I'd like to take you on another little trip today from Pacific City and on north and over toward Portland and Yamhill. Come on along. A quarter-mile walk from the beach, Pacific City is a nice little tourist town. In fact, it's one of my favorite coastal towns. It's just a little ways off the beaten path. Now next, after Pacific City, we'll go north to Cloverdale, Hebo, Beaver, Hemlock, Pleasant Valley, Tillamook River Wayside, and the Blimp Hangar. There's another community called Cloverdale just east of Cresswell. This Cloverdale is a farming community also, but it's bigger and has a few little shops along the highway.
They've got a bank here. This is a little town.
Kind of an interesting little place. 3 miles further north is Hebo, another small town. If you make a right turn here toward Salem, you'll discover that this is also a favorite location for artists and hippie-type folks. Then just a little further north is a rest area and a roadhouse. The next little town to the north is Beaver. From here there's the road east over the mountains, which goes by several forest campgrounds and ends at Carlton, just north of McMinnville. We'll travel that road a little later after we travel Highway 18. Meanwhile, the next little community to the north is Hemlock. There's only a few houses here. There is a road that turns off and goes west, back to Sand Lake and some of the other places that we've already visited. The next little community has a nice name, Pleasant Valley, and it has a campground too. After another 3 miles is a very welcome rest stop and picnic ground, the Tillamook River Wayside. One of the neighbors across the street seems to have an old antique car in their yard. In just a mile or two north, and just before you come into Tillamook, is the world's largest wood building, the Tillamook Blimp Hangar. During World War II, the Navy built 16 of these gigantic hangars within a year. 20 stories high and 1/5 of a mile long, this remaining hangar was used by sawmills for 30 years after the Navy was through with it. The sign says 1942 through 1948 were the years of operation. Hangar A was destroyed by fire in 1992, leaving only Hangar B, which houses an interesting blimp museum. Let's just take a little look around inside. In the museum, they have old black and white pictures of the construction of these hangars that could hold 8 blimps at a time. These monstrosities were 250 feet long and were important in the 40s for following naval convoys. They were able to spot and destroy submarines before they could sink the ships. The blimps they have in the hangar today are much smaller. Just inside the door there was a video running showing the fire of Hangar A in 1992, and some of the firemen were telling a little bit more about it.
All hell, the door exploded out, knocked me down to the ground and pinned it. I didn't think I was going to make it out. I could move the door.
Arriving on the scene, volunteer fireman Ken Offermauer points the VHS camera at the blaze.
The camera is underneath the seat of our rescue rig. We got an excess manpower. Then usually shoot the incident, and then we'll release on later.
The building is 200 feet high, covering more than 7 acres. 1 fire truck and 7 men are inside.
This fire involved a stored straw pile that was probably around 7,600 tons in weight. The dimensions of it were at least 30 feet high and probably
The entire building appears to breathe.
1 minute it was pulling you in, 1 minute throwing you back out. It was unreal. I'll never ever imagine or hear another sound like that in my life. The wind, the drafting of it, just the Tillamook.
20 miles south of Tillamook, we'll look at the park just south of Pacific City, which is now named Bob Straub State Park. From there, we'll go to the Oretown viewpoint, Neskowin, Neskowin Beach Wayside, Otis, Rose Lodge, Van Duzer Wayside, Grand Ronde and its Indian Agency, Midway, Dolph Junction to Castle Rock Park, Little Neskowin Park, and Meda. The Bob Straub State Park runs along the beach for about a mile south of Pacific City. It has turnoffs from the main road where you can cross the Sanddrift Control Hill for beach access just anywhere you wish. This is like several of the other parks along our scenic Oregon beaches, which we all enjoy. The water is just a little bit cold for splashing around and swimming, but after a while you get numb and you don't really notice it so much. At the place where the map shows Oretown, there's this nice turnoff and viewpoint overlooking the beach and a few houses. And then just a little south is Neskowin. Several houses and cabins with a market and a cafe. The Neskowin Wayside has a beach access where you can enjoy the sand while watching waves crashing into the rock cliffs. 5 miles south, we turn east onto Highway 18 and pass through Otis and Rose Lodge. Just a couple of small settlements. Rose Lodge at least has a post office, so it's more like a small town. And about 4 miles further east is the Van Duzer State Park. A nice park deep in the forest, but right off the highway. A quiet rest area with plenty of picnic tables. Then after a couple more shops and a mill, you come to Grand Ronde. This is a bigger community than it first appears. Besides this old antique Russell steam tractor and the business area, there's a road that connects it to the Indian Tribal Headquarters and Grand Ronde Agency a couple of miles north on Highway 22. At Grand Ronde Agency there's a lone grocery store and a church. After going west a few miles, we saw an old 1929 Pontiac along the highway for sale for $6,500. It only had 31,000 miles on it.
Just 31,000 miles on it.
Is that all? How come it's never been drove much?
Well,
Stored in a barn or
you
something?
familiar with Monmouth?
Yeah.
Judge Cooper at Monmouth owns it.
Oh, really?
And,
And he never drove it much, huh?
yeah, it's parked in the garage most of the time. It's been in the garage for 60-some years.
There's only a few houses along the road where Midway once stood. It probably got the name by being halfway between McMinnville and the coast. On further west is the summit of the Coast Fork Mountain Crossing, only 672 feet. This is how tall that fir trees grow in just 4 years here on the summit where it was logged off. Dolph is only a junction now. The road to the left goes to Meda. We'll take it after we visit Castle Rock on the road to the right. The only business left of Dolph is an old auto repair shop which was closed years ago. 5 miles down the right fork is Castle Rock, a very nice little campground. This is the Little Nestucca River Valley, and it's out the left fork from Dolph. In about 6 miles you come to the Little Nestucca County Park. It's just a wee little park up the bank from the road. This is in a nice peaceful area because very little traffic comes up this road. Meda is only a farming community now, like many other rural Oregon towns off the main road. No businesses can survive without people, so all the stores are gone. Next we'll go from Valley Junction to Willamina and Fendall, up Bible Creek to Rocky Bend Park, Blaine, and then back to Beaver. We're going back past the Grand Ronde Agency gas stop, and you come to the junction with Highway 18. A left turn takes you to Valley Junction, another small gas and food stop. 4 miles east is Willamina, a larger city of 1,750 people. The sign Timbertown, USA tells you what the economy here was built upon. If you think spotted owls are important, you better not mention it here. These people are very unhappy campers about the feds trying to lock up their timber and take their jobs away. You can be sure after they've taken this resource away, they won't give it back. Next, they'll try to destroy other businesses and take the rest of our resources away. Want to see how easily a free country can be turned into a dictatorship? Just watch. A couple miles north of Willamina is the Fendall School, one of the last of the little red schoolhouses. This is a nice little community along a creek. It wouldn't be a good idea to travel this road without a detailed map showing road names, because you need to make a couple of left turns, and there aren't any signs showing which way to go. Bible Creek Road is the last left turn. The creek is in the bottom of the canyon, but there are a couple of nice waterfalls running down to it. After reaching the Beaver Highway, this is the first park you come to going west. There are several going east, and we'll visit them a little later. This road to the coast from Carlton to Beaver is about the most scenic route across the Coast Fork mountain range. It's quite curvy and even has about 5 miles of gravel road, but it's worth the drive. There's a waterfall about every 2 miles along the way. This was in mid-April, so there may be fewer waterfalls later in the year. Even so, this is just one of God's masterpieces. After you come down from the mountains, you arrive at the old community of Blaine, just 4 miles before Beaver. This area, like the rest of Oregon's north coast, is loaded with dairy farms. With the abundant rainfall and the mild climate over here, it would be hard to find a better spot for cows. The only public building here is the Blaine Baptist Church, which is kept in perfect repair. Just a short distance over these rolling hills and dairyland, and we come back into the town of Beaver again. From Beaver, let's go to Sheridan, Bellevue, Erratic Rock, and McMinnville, where we'll look at the Spruce Goose. Sheridan is a small city of about 2,500 people. It's kind of an interesting looking old town. We're now coming in from the west side until we get to the city's one and only stoplight. Next we're coming in from the south, back to the stoplight again. Altogether there's probably about a mile of Main Street between these two streets. This place is pretty well spread out. Now we're going to make a right turn and head back east again. This is Bellevue, another gas and grocery stop. The Erratic Rock is completely different from all the other rocks in this area. It is like the rocks that are found far up the Columbia River. Scientists figure it could have been carried here by an ancient glacier. This is up on top of a little knoll on a half-mile trail from the road. Just down the trail you walk by a few grazing sheep. Then in another 6 miles to the northwest you arrive at McMinnville. You can take the Highway 18 bypass, which is the quickest way, but we'll go the 99 business loop first. This city of 19,000 is well planned and is a favorite shopping center for the whole surrounding area. If you take the Highway 18 bypass, you'll go by the airport and McMinnville's main tourist attraction, just east of the Tangier Shopping Center, the Spruce Goose. This huge flying boat was built mainly from birch and was trucked here from Portland. The world's largest airplane was built by Howard Hughes. Thought to be too heavy to fly, he made one flight just to show that it could be done, thanks to 8 of these 28-cylinder, 3,000 horsepower motors. Besides just flying, it was supposed to be able to haul 2 30-ton Sherman tanks, or 750 troops. The flying boat was able to take off or land on water. Look at the rear stabilizer on the tail to get an idea of the size. It's 47 feet tall, and with it lying down, I can't reach halfway across its 19-foot width. It just sits here disassembled under cover until they build their aviation museum sometime around 1997. Meanwhile, the Evergreen Museum is open from 8:30 to 4:30 on most of the weekdays. Just make an appointment first. Further northwest from McMinnville is LaFayette, Dundee, Newberg, Sherwood, Tualatin, and Durham. Lafayette is one of Oregon's oldest cities. It was founded in 1846 and named after Lafayette, Indiana. It was the Yamhill County seat until 1889. The old school ahead and the church built in 1892 are a couple of interesting old buildings. The log house next door is new. The town of Dundee was founded later in 1874. It was a railroad town at the first, then later became a large fruit and nut producer, much of which is gone today, but northwest of here you'll see lots of these orchards around Yamhill. Newberg is another small city of around 15,000 people. Many members of the Friends Church congregate here because of George Fox College. It started as Friends Pacific University, from which Herbert Hoover graduated. George Fox College was raised to college level in 1891 by the Quaker Church. Young people still come from afar just to be able to go to school here. In another 3 miles is Sherwood. It looks just like any other town on the highway, but if you pull off the main road, you'll find the old part of town. A Mr. Smock originally named this place Smockville in 1889. Then the name was changed to Sherwood a couple of years later, maybe because of the deep forest around the town. Tualatin, a city of 17,000, is a forest too, but it's a forest of apartments and townhouses, along with a massive industrial area. Tualatin and Durham are joined together. It's hard to tell where one ends and the other starts. One interesting old historic building is the Durham School, which was built in 1920. They still use it today for several things, but they've had to add a few more rooms off to the right. Next, let's go back to where we left off in the middle of the Beaver Carlton Highway. We'll go by the Outpost Grocery Store, then Alder Glen, Elk Bend, Fan Creek, Dover, Carlton, Yamhill, Pike, Cove Orchard, Wapato, Gaston, Cherry Grove, Henry Haig Lake, and Dilley. The only store on this whole road is the Outpost Grocery and Deli, clear out in the middle where the two roads meet. It had an open sign in the window, so they must do a little business out here in the middle of nowhere. In 3 miles, you come to the Alder Glen Campground and Waterfall. There are 5 altogether on this beautiful drive from the coast. The McGuire Reservoir is where McMinnville's water comes from. This is still pretty high up in the Coast Fork Mountains. Whenever you can see through the trees from here on, you can see clear to the valley floor. We'll go down past a few more farms and orchards and end up in the town of Carlton. I believe this is a filbert orchard. Some of our state's richest farmland is right here in Yamhill County. The town of Carlton was once a small bustling city, but now, bypassed by the newer main roads, goes unnoticed by most, even though 1,300 people still live here. Well, that's about as far as we can go this half hour. You know, the same God that's created all this beauty can also make something beautiful out of your life. If you're tired of living just for yourself and the unhappiness that that brings, you might consider turning over your life to the Lord Jesus Christ. You can have a powerful experience with Him and then be a blessing to others also and be able to live by His Word. Come on back again next month and let's go a little further up some of these old back roads. We're on every week now, so next week let's go on to Dilley and historic Kenton. Then we'll retrace the route of the lost wagon train of 1853 through Rigdon, south of Oak Ridge. Bring your hiking shoes.